There are people today who are crying not because they lost someone, but because they are struggling to accept why Allah removed that person from their life. The heart becomes weak when it feels lonely, and sometimes in the middle of that loneliness, Shaitan comes quietly. He does not tell you to do something obviously evil. He simply reminds you of the memories, the laughter, the attention, the moments you shared with someone who was slowly destroying your peace. And suddenly what was toxic begins to look comforting again. My beloved brothers and sisters, this is how many people return to the very pain Allah rescued them from. They mistake loneliness for love. They mistake emotional attachment for healing. But understand this carefully. Not every person you miss is meant to return to your life. Sometimes Allah removes people because He heard conversations you did not hear, saw intentions you did not see, and knew the damage they would eventually cause to your heart, your mind, and even your relationship with Him. Loneliness is a test, not a signal to return, my beloved brothers and sisters. One of the most misunderstood phases in a person's life is the season of loneliness after separation from something or someone they were emotionally attached to. At that moment, the heart does not think clearly. It remembers only the comfort, not the pain. It remembers only the presence, not the harm. And because of that, a person begins to believe a dangerous lie, that going back will heal them. But in reality, loneliness is not a sign that you are incomplete. It is a sign that Allah is training your heart to detach from creation and reconnect with the Creator. Because if your heart always finds comfort in people, it will never learn to find peace with Allah alone. And sometimes Allah removes people not to punish you, but to purify your dependency. My beloved brothers and sisters, understand this carefully. Shaitan knows that loneliness is one of the weakest emotional states of a human being. When a person is alone, quiet and emotionally vulnerable, Shaitan does not come with obvious sins. He comes with emotional persuasion. He whispers, "Go back, it wasn't that bad, you can fix it. You are too alone." And if a person is not grounded in faith, they fall for that whisper. They return to what broke them, thinking it will heal them. But what broke you in a state of connection will break you even more when you return in a state of weakness. This is why Allah reminds us in the Quran, "La yukallifunilahu nafsan illa wus'aha." Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. So even your loneliness is not random. It is not punishment. It is not abandonment. It is a calculated test from the one who knows your inner strength better than you know yourself. Allah knows that if you endure this phase correctly, you will emerge stronger, more independent, and more emotionally attached to Him than ever before. And my beloved brothers and sisters, here is the painful truth. Many people fail this test, not because the test is too hard, but because they do not understand the purpose behind it. They assume loneliness is a problem to escape, when in reality, it is a message to grow. So they rush back to toxic relationships, and instead of healing, they reopen wounds that were already closing. True healing in Islam is not returning to what hurt you. True healing is standing firm in the absence, resisting emotional weakness and saying, "Ya Allah, even if my heart feels empty, I will not choose what displeases you just to feel temporarily full." Because remember this carefully, my beloved brothers and sisters, loneliness will not last forever. But the decisions you make in loneliness can shape your entire destiny. Not every comfort is a blessing, my beloved brothers and sisters. One of the most dangerous stages in emotional healing is when a person starts confusing comfort with goodness. Because the human heart, when it is broken or lonely, does not always seek what is right. It seeks what feels familiar. And familiarity can sometimes be the greatest deception. After leaving a toxic connection, a person may feel withdrawal. They miss the messages, the attention, the presence, even if that presence was the very reason for their emotional pain. And Shaitan takes advantage of this weakness. He does not say, "Go do something haram." He simply says, "You were happier before. You felt less alone before. Just go back and fix it." And slowly the heart begins to romanticize what was actually harmful. But my beloved brothers and sisters, understand this reality clearly. Not every comfort is a blessing from Allah. Sometimes comfort is a test. Because what feels easy to return to may be exactly what Allah is protecting you from. Allah reminds us in the Quran about those who follow their desires even when truth is clear. أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Have you seen the one who takes his own desire as his God? This verse is not only about major sins, it is also about the subtle moments when a person chooses emotion over guidance, desire over wisdom, and temporary comfort over long-term salvation. When a person returns to toxicity just because their heart feels empty, they are not choosing peace. They are choosing desire disguised as healing. My beloved brothers and sisters, emotional attachment can blind a person so deeply that they forget why they left in the first place. They only remember the good moments, not the tears. They only remember the laughter, not the anxiety. They only remember the attention, not the emotional damage. This is how Shaitan beautifies the past to destroy the future. And this is why Islam teaches us not to trust feelings blindly. Feelings change, hearts fluctuate, but truth remains constant. If something repeatedly distanced you from Allah, damaged your peace, or affected your self-worth, then going back to it just because you feel lonely is not healing. It is self-harm in disguise. My beloved brothers and sisters, Allah does not take something away from you without reason. Sometimes what you call comfort was actually a slow destruction of your heart. And when Allah removes it, He is giving you the chance to reset your emotional dependence, to rebuild your identity, and to reconnect your heart to Him alone. And here is the hard part. Choosing what is right often feels uncomfortable at first, because healing is not always soft. Healing sometimes feels like withdrawal. It feels like emptiness. It feels like silence. But that silence is not punishment. It is purification. Because anything that pulls you away from Allah, even if it feels comforting, is not a mercy in reality. It is a distraction. And distractions always feel good at first, but they leave regret later. So my beloved brothers and sisters, do not measure your decisions by how comforting they feel in the moment. Measure them by whether they bring you closer to Allah or further away from Him. Because true comfort is not what calms your emotions for a few minutes. True comfort is what gives your heart peace with Allah for a lifetime. Allah removes people to protect you, my beloved brothers and sisters. One of the most painful experiences in a person's life is when someone they deeply cared about is suddenly no longer part of their life. The human heart does not easily accept separation. It questions, it overthinks, it replays memories, and it keeps asking the same silent question again and again. Why did this happen to me? And in that confusion, a person often assumes that loss means punishment, that distance means rejection, and that separation means Allah is displeased with them. But the reality in many cases is completely the opposite. Sometimes what you call loss is actually protection. Sometimes what you call heartbreak is actually divine rescue. And sometimes what you think was taken from you was actually taken for you. My beloved brothers and sisters, Allah does not remove people randomly from your life. He is Al-Alim, the one who knows what you do not know. He sees what your heart cannot see. He knows what was happening behind your back, what was being planned against your peace, what was slowly affecting your iman, your mental state, your self-worth, and even your connection with Him. And because of His mercy, He intervenes at a time you do not understand. There are people who enter your life smiling, speaking kindly, appearing close, but slowly they begin to change your inner state. At first it feels harmless, then it becomes attachment, then it becomes dependency. And before you even realize it, your emotions are tied to them more than your emotions are tied to Allah. And that is where the danger begins. My beloved brothers and sisters, anything that competes with your heart's attachment to Allah becomes a test for your soul. And if Allah sees that something or someone is pulling your heart away from Him, even subtly, even slowly, He may remove it from your life, not to break you, but to save you from a deeper spiritual loss that you are not paying attention to. And yet, when the removal happens, the human reaction is emotional confusion. The heart says, I cannot live without them. The mind says, I need them to be happy again. But in reality, what you are feeling is withdrawal, not necessity. It is emotional dependency, not actual requirement. Because the truth is, you survived before them and you will survive after them. My beloved brothers and sisters, one of the hardest lessons in life is understanding that not everyone who leaves you is a loss, and not everything that ends is a punishment. Sometimes Allah ends relationships before they become a source of destruction in your life, because He knows your future pain before you experience it. You may not see the harm now, but Allah sees the direction it was heading. You may only remember the good moments, but Allah knows the hidden effects those connections were having on your heart. You may only feel the emptiness now, but Allah is preparing your heart for a different kind of fullness, one that is not dependent on people, but anchored in Him alone. And this is where true tawakkul begins. Not just saying you trust Allah, but actually trusting that His decisions for your life are better than your emotional preferences. Even when your heart disagrees, even when your feelings are heavy, even when you do not understand the wisdom behind it. My beloved brothers and sisters, there is a profound reality that many people only understand after time passes. And that reality is this: some people were never meant to stay in your life forever. They were meant to teach you, to awaken you, to redirect you, and then to leave. And their departure is not cruelty, it is completion of their role in your journey. If they stayed beyond their purpose, they could have become a source of distraction, emotional instability, or even spiritual decline. So Allah in His wisdom allows separation before damage becomes permanent. But at that moment, the human heart only feels pain, not protection. And Shaitan takes advantage of that pain. He makes you believe that going back will fix everything. He makes you forget the arguments, the emotional exhaustion, the confusion, the inconsistency, and he only highlights the moments that made you feel temporarily valued. But that is deception. Because what breaks you repeatedly is not meant to be your healing source. My beloved brothers and sisters, if Allah has removed someone from your life, do not rush to replace what He removed with something similar. Because what Allah removes is not meant to be replaced by emotional impulse. It is meant to be replaced with patience, growth, and reliance upon Him. There are people who only realize later, sometimes after months or even years, that the separation they cried over was actually the greatest mercy in disguise. They begin to see how their heart became lighter, how their prayers became more focused, how their emotional confusion decreased, and how their identity slowly returned to them. That is when they understand that Allah did not abandon them, He rescued them. And my beloved brothers and sisters, remember this carefully. Allah never removes something good from your life without replacing it with something better for your faith, even if that replacement is not immediately visible. Sometimes the replacement is peace. Sometimes it is clarity. Sometimes it is strength. And sometimes it is a deeper relationship with Allah that you would never have reached if that person had remained in your life. So do not mourn every separation as a tragedy. Some separations are spiritual protection, some are mercy, and some are Allah saving you from a path you were emotionally blind to. And if today you are sitting in loneliness, wondering why someone is no longer in your life, then instead of running back to what was unstable, turn your heart to the one who never leaves. Because people may come and go, but Allah remains. And when your heart finally learns that truth, you will realize that nothing was ever truly lost. It was simply redirected towards something better. Emotional dependence can destroy your faith, my beloved brothers and sisters. There is a silent danger that does not always look like sin, does not always feel like wrongdoing, and does not always appear harmful at first. In fact, it often comes wrapped in something that feels very natural, something even emotionally comforting. That danger is emotional dependence on people, to the extent that your heart begins to rely on them more than it relies on Allah. And when that happens, a person may not even realize how their spiritual balance slowly begins to collapse. At the beginning, it starts in a very subtle way. You begin to think about someone constantly. You begin to check your phone more than you check your heart. You begin to measure your happiness based on their presence, their attention, their response, or their absence. And slowly, without realizing it, that person becomes emotionally central in your life. And when they are present, you feel peace. And when they are absent, you feel emptiness. This is where the problem begins. My beloved brothers and sisters, Allah created the human heart with the ability to love, to attach, and to feel deeply. But He never intended for that attachment to replace dependence on Him. Because when emotional dependence shifts from Allah to creation, the heart becomes fragile, it becomes unstable, it becomes controlled by circumstances instead of guided by faith. And this is why Islam consistently redirects the heart back to Allah. Because Allah knows that people will come and go, emotions will rise and fall, relationships will change. But the heart that is anchored in Allah remains steady even when everything else is unstable. There is a powerful reality that many people only understand after they experience emotional loss. When a person becomes too attached to another human being, they begin to compromise parts of themselves without even noticing. At first, it is small compromises. You ignore things you once considered unacceptable. You tolerate behavior you once said you would never tolerate. You silence your own boundaries just to maintain connection. And slowly, your identity begins to shift, my beloved brothers and sisters. This is why emotional dependence is so dangerous, because it does not destroy you in one moment. It slowly reshapes you in ways you do not immediately recognize. And by the time you realize it, your heart is already deeply tied to something that may not even be good for your deen, your peace, or your future. Allah reminds us in the Quran about those who allow their desires and attachments to override truth. أَفَرَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Have you seen the one who takes his desire as his God? This is not only about clear wrongdoing, it is also about emotional attachments that become so powerful that they override your connection with Allah. When pleasing someone becomes more important than pleasing Allah, when losing someone feels more devastating than losing your connection with Allah, then the heart has already shifted its center of gravity. My beloved brothers and sisters, one of the greatest signs of emotional dependence is fear. Fear of losing someone, fear of being alone, fear of being replaced, fear of silence, fear of distance. And when fear becomes the driving force of attachment, a person no longer makes decisions based on wisdom. They make decisions based on emotional survival. And Shaitan loves this state. Because in this state, a person becomes easy to manipulate. He whispers, if you lose them, you will never be okay again. He whispers, you need them more than you need peace. He whispers, without them, you are nothing. And if the heart is not connected strongly to Allah, those whispers begin to sound like truth. My beloved brothers and sisters, Allah never designed your heart to be enslaved by any creation. Your heart is meant to love, yes. Your heart is meant to care, yes. But your heart is also meant to remain free. Free from emotional chains, free from destructive dependency, free from anything that competes with your submission to Allah. And here is a painful truth that many only realize after they experience heartbreak. Emotional dependence does not protect you from pain. In fact, it multiplies pain. Because the more you depend on someone, the more their absence shakes you. The more their words control your emotions, the more their behavior affects your inner peace. And the more your entire emotional stability becomes tied to something you cannot control. My beloved brothers and sisters, Allah never wants your heart to live in that state. That is why He sometimes removes people, not because they are always bad, but because your attachment to them was becoming unhealthy for your spiritual state. It was beginning to occupy space in your heart that belongs to Allah alone. And when Allah removes that attachment, the initial feeling is pain, the heart feels withdrawal, the mind feels confusion, the soul feels emptiness. But that emptiness is not destruction, it is detoxification. It is Allah cleansing the heart from dependency so that it be rebuilt on stronger foundations. There is a moment every believer must eventually reach. A moment where they realize that no human being can ever be the source of their peace. Because humans are inconsistent, they are limited, they are emotional, they are imperfect. And when you place perfection level emotional expectations on imperfect beings, disappointment becomes inevitable. But Allah is different, Allah is constant. Allah is sufficient, Allah is never absent, and Allah is never confused about your needs. My beloved brothers and sisters, emotional dependence often leads a person into compromising their relationship with Allah without even realizing it. They may delay salah because they are emotionally overwhelmed. They may neglect dhikr because their mind is occupied with attachment. They may become distant from the Quran because their heart is consumed with emotional turbulence. And slowly the connection with Allah weakens, not because they stop believing, but because something else took priority. And this is where the danger becomes spiritual, not just emotional. True faith requires balance. You can love people, but you cannot depend on them in a way that weakens your reliance on Allah. You can care deeply, but you cannot let that care become the center of your existence. Because the moment something other than Allah becomes the center, instability enters your life. My beloved brothers and sisters, sometimes Allah allows emotional disappointment not to break you, but to bring you back to Him, back to dependence on Him, back to the realization that He alone is sufficient for the heart. And when a believer reaches that realization, something powerful happens. The fear of losing people begins to fade. The anxiety of abandonment begins to decrease. The obsession with attachment begins to weaken. And the heart slowly starts to breathe again, not through people, but through tawakkul in Allah. So if you are in a phase where emotional dependence once controlled you and now Allah is pulling you out of it, do not resist that process. It may feel uncomfortable at first. It may feel like emptiness. It may feel like withdrawal. But in reality, it is freedom, because Allah is not taking someone away to punish you. He is removing dependence so that your heart can finally stand on its own, connected to the one who never leaves, never changes, and never fails you. And when your heart finally learns to depend on Allah alone, you will understand something very beautiful. You will understand that you were never losing anything essential. You were being returned to the only source of true emotional stability that exists, and that is Allah. Healing requires distance, my beloved brothers and sisters. One of the most difficult truths for the human heart to accept is that healing does not happen in the same environment where the damage was created. Many people want to heal while still staying emotionally close to what broke them. They want peace while still keeping access to the source of their pain. They want recovery while still maintaining connection with what repeatedly disturbs their heart. And then they wonder why the wounds never fully close. But the reality is simple. Even if it is difficult, healing requires distance. When a person has been emotionally hurt, especially through toxic attachment, inconsistency, or emotional instability, the heart becomes sensitive, it becomes reactive. Even small reminders can reopen old wounds. A message, a memory, a photo, or even a thought can bring back everything that was once felt. And in such a state, remaining close to the source of that pain is like trying to recover from an injury while continuously reopening it. My beloved brothers and sisters, Allah created the human heart in a way that it needs space to recover. Just like the body needs rest after injury, the heart needs separation after emotional harm. And this separation is not punishment, it is protection. Allah does not only guide through commandments, He also guides through removal. Sometimes He removes people, situations, or environments, not because they're always evil in themselves, but because your heart cannot heal in their presence. Because every time you stay close, your emotions are reset, your progress is interrupted, your healing is delayed. And this is why many people remain stuck for months or even years in emotional cycles. They say they are healing, but they are still watching, still checking, still engaging, still emotionally connected. And as long as that connection remains, true healing cannot begin. My beloved brothers and sisters, there is a powerful wisdom in the Sunnah of Allah regarding distance. Even in physical wounds, doctors do not place the injury back into the same harmful environment. They clean it, they isolate it, they protect it, and they allow it time away from further harm. The heart works in a very similar way. And yet, Shaitan tries to reverse this process. He convinces a person that distance is harsh, that separation is unnecessary, that staying connected is harmless. He makes you believe that just a little contact will not hurt. but he knows exactly what that small contact leads to. It leads to reopening what Allah was trying to close. My beloved brothers and sisters, Allah reminds us in the Quran, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا, indeed, with hardship comes ease. But that ease does not always come while you are still holding on to what caused the hardship. Sometimes the ease begins when you finally let go, when you step back, when you allow your heart to detach fully so Allah can replace emotional chaos with peace. Distance in Islam is not always about hatred, it is about wisdom. It is about protecting your deen, your emotional stability, and your future. Because not every connection is meant to continue just because it existed once. Some connections are meant to end so that you can return to yourself and return to Allah without distraction. My beloved brothers and sisters, one of the most dangerous illusions in emotional pain is the belief that access equals healing. People think that if they can still talk, still check, still remain close, they will eventually feel better. But in reality, access often prolongs pain. Because every interaction reactivates attachment, and every attachment reactivates vulnerability. And vulnerability, when not guided by wisdom, leads to emotional relapse. True healing requires consistency in distance, not emotional distance for a day, not for a week, but a committed separation that allows the heart to reset fully. Because the heart is not weak by creation, but it is affected by repetition. And whatever you repeatedly expose it to becomes part of its emotional memory. My beloved brothers and sisters, Allah knows this better than we know ourselves. That is why sometimes He removes access completely. Not to punish, but to protect the healing process. Because He knows that as long as access remains, the heart will keep returning to what harms it. And this is where trust in Allah becomes essential. Because at this stage, the heart does not want distance. The emotions want familiarity. The mind wants closure. But Allah is guiding you towards something deeper than closure. He is guiding you toward clarity, and clarity only comes when noise is removed. There is a wisdom that many only understand after time has passed. When they finally maintain distance, even though it was painful at first, they begin to notice something subtle but powerful. Their thoughts become lighter, their emotions become less chaotic, their connection with Allah becomes stronger, and slowly the grip of attachment begins to loosen. That is not coincidence, that is healing in motion. My beloved brothers and sisters, if you are in a stage where Allah is pushing you toward distance, do not interpret it as loss. Interpret it as mercy. Because Allah does not remove something from your life without intending to give you something better for your heart, even if that better thing is inner peace. And sometimes inner peace is more valuable than any connection that once drained you. So do not sabotage your healing by breaking the distance Allah is using to protect you. Because every time you return too early, you delay your own recovery. And every time you choose patience, you allow your heart to rebuild itself in a way that is stronger, calmer, and closer to Allah than before. And that is the true goal of healing, not just to forget the pain, but to return to Allah with a heart that no longer depends on what once broke it. Shaitan uses loneliness as a gateway, my beloved brothers and sisters. There is a moment in every human life when silence becomes louder than words. It is the moment when you are alone with your thoughts, when notifications are quiet, when conversations are missing, and when the heart begins to remember everything it once felt. And in that silence, a person becomes most vulnerable, not because they are weak in strength, but because they are exposed in emotion. And this is exactly the moment Shaitan waits for. My beloved brothers and sisters, Shaitan does not always attack through obvious sins. He does not always come with something clearly haram in front of you. Instead, he works through emotion. He works through memory. He works through longing. He works through the feeling of emptiness that follows separation from toxic attachment. Because he knows that when the heart is lonely, it becomes easier to misguide. He whispers softly, remember the good times. He whispers, it wasn't that bad. He whispers, maybe you overreacted. He whispers, just check on them. Just talk once. Just go back and fix it. And slowly, what Allah removed begins to look attractive again. My beloved brothers and sisters, this is not healing. This is deception. Allah warns us in the Quran about the nature of Shaitan. Inna shaitana lakum aduun fattakhidhuhu. Adu, indeed Shaitan is an enemy to you, so take him as an enemy. And one of the most dangerous strategies of this enemy is that he does not always confront you directly. He influences you through your emotional weak points. And loneliness is one of the strongest weak points of the human heart. When a person is lonely, they do not think with full clarity. They begin to romanticize what they once left behind. They begin to forget the reasons they walked away. They begin to focus only on emotional comfort, not on spiritual consequence. And this is how Shaitan slowly opens a door that Allah had already closed. My beloved brothers and sisters, understand this carefully. Shaitan does not want you to commit a big sin immediately. He wants you to take a small step away from clarity. Because once you take a small step back, the next step becomes easier, and then the next, until a person finds themselves fully returned to something they once escaped from. And what makes this even more dangerous is that Shaitan uses emotional logic. He does not argue with your faith directly. He argues with your feelings. He says, you are lonely. He says, you deserve comfort. He says, Allah would understand. But He never reminds you of the pain that followed that connection. He never reminds you of the anxiety, the confusion, the instability, the emotional exhaustion. My beloved brothers and sisters,